Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at today's roundtable. My name is Evelise. I'm from Person-Centered Care Services. I'm the Outreach and Engagement Specialist. Thank you for those that are online as well as in person. Just to give you a little bit of a run of show, the first half of this roundtable is going to be a presentation about the housing rental subsidy. We're going to talk about disability stigma busting, environmental modifications, and more. If you have any questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to throw them in the chat and we can get them to you afterward. The second half of this presentation is going to be a roundtable discussion with all of our panelists, which I'm going to introduce now. So first we have Chris Marchione. She's on with us virtually. She's the founder and executive director of Person-Centered Care Services. We have Christine DeHart, which is over here, from Salmon Real Estate. Lori Catricola, who's the senior program manager at Person-Centered Care Services. Joe Consenta, who's a self-advocate at Person-Centered Care Services, and Hossam, I'm going to ruin your last name, so I'm not even going to do it. Okay. He's the director of community supports at Person-Centered Care Services. The second half of this, about 1 o'clock, we're going to do a panel-style discussion, which is a Q&A type situation. I have some questions for our panelists, and then also feel free to write in the chat any questions you may have, because we're going to get to those as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So these are some of our learning objectives for today. We're going to review the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, overview of PCCS and what we do. We're going to talk about the housing rental subsidy, environmental modifications, and then we have some time for questions as well. So this is just a very general and basic overview of OPWDD. So the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities is responsible for coordinating services for New Yorkers with developmental disabilities, including intellectual disabilities, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, autism spectrum disorders, Prader-Willi syndrome, and other neurological impairments. It provides services directly and through a network of approximately 500 nonprofit service provider agencies, with about 20% of services provided by private nonprofits and 20% provided by state-run services. So PCCS, or Person-Centered Care Service, we operate under OPWDD. How to receive services. So this is just a very short version of how to receive services, just to give everyone an overview in case you're unfamiliar. So people new to OPWDD can access services and supports through the front door. Front door is the way OPWDD connects with people to services they need and they want. Once you enter, a person-centered planning process begins, which helps you learn more about and access the service options, taking your needs and desires into consideration. The front door process will guide you through the steps involved in finding out if you're eligible for services with OPWDD, identify your needs, goals, and preferences, and help you work on a plan for getting those services. Developmental Disability Regional Offices, or DDROs, there's one in every single borough in New York City. This is where the front door process happens. What are some of the developmental disabilities that qualify? These are just some, not all. So intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, neurological impairment, autism, familial dysnomia, and Prader-Willi syndrome. So if I need services, where do I begin? People can contact the OPWDD regional office that covers their county to access front door. So for Staten Island, Richmond County, there's a number on the screen, 718-982-1913, or you can call the OPWDD info line directly at 1-866-946-9733. Our mission and vision at PCCS. So our mission, Person-Centered Care Services, is a nonprofit organization creating social change within communities by supporting people with disabilities on their search for identity and acceptance. Our vision is to reconfigure humankind, to be genuine and authentic human beings, disabled and non-disabled, creating a society of belonging and helping one another to live a good life. Our strategy and impact. Our strategy is to help a person build comprehensive supports that will engage and propel them to lead the life they want to live. Our impact, providing support to the Staten Island community and the greater New York City area to help create and facilitate relationships, resulting in a more diverse community while providing services to people with disabilities to engage and be a part of their communities. Our core values, support. Our responsibilities as human beings is to support ourselves and one another. Equity, to participate in community is to have active citizenship. To be a participating citizen, one must have opportunities which are equitable, which accommodate the differences all human beings have. And the last one is acceptance. One of the most vital components of having a quality of life is love. It's okay to tell someone you love them, and more importantly, it's okay to show them. To accept one another for who they are and what makes them human can be the most validating experience. It is self-empowering. These are some of the services that we provide at PCCS under OPWDD. So we have our day habilitation without walls, community habilitation, respite, housing and rental subsidy, which we're going to be talking about a lot today, family education and training, community-based pre-vocational, pathways to employment, supported employment, employment training program, individualized residential alternative or our IRAs or group homes, fiscal intermediary or FI, support brokerage. We also do different events that have continuing education units or CEUs for social workers, our disability ally initiative, and we also have consulting services. Now, before we get into the content, I'm going to pass it over to Chris Marchione to give us a little bit of history about the housing rental subsidy and PCCS.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Evelise, for that detailed but yet concise overview of who we are. I established this organization in 2001. We're going to be celebrating our 25th year, the year of Born to Belong. And we started supporting people with housing rental subsidies 20 years ago. And the first person that I supported actually is still in the program. So it's going on 20 years. We provide probably over 120 people with assistance with drawing down this housing subsidy. We firmly believe that people with intellectual developmental disabilities are more than capable of living in their own apartment with the right supports. And my colleagues here will explain to you how this is different from some other government housing subsidies. For one, this is a New York State housing subsidy specifically for people with intellectual and developmental disability. And it focuses on supporting people from medical support, social work, nursing, and including helping them navigate all of the activities and tasks that need to be done in their own apartment. Some people also get supports with finding employment. But it's now 20 years that we've been providing subsidies. The program keeps growing. More and more people are looking for us for guidance on that. Not only do we support people on Staten Island, but through the 5 boroughs and on Long Island. So I'll hand it over to my colleagues so that they can talk more about this housing program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And now we're going to get into the housing rental subsidy and what it is. So Sam, if you would like to take over, if you want to come up, or if you're comfortable sitting there, that's
Sure,
okay.
I'll go ahead and kind of speak from my seat. So the housing rental subsidy assists adults with developmental disabilities who wish to live independently or receive rental subsidy by providing funds to pay for housing costs. It works like other government-funded housing subsidies, such as the Federal Housing Choice Voucher Program. For example, we're all familiar with Section 8 voucher program and things like that. So it kind of works in the same manner. HRS is designed to support income-eligible adults with developmental disabilities who choose to live independently within their communities. Persons enrolled in HRS must be financially and legally responsible, for example, a leaseholder, for their housing unit as a responsible tenant. People enrolled in HRS are expected to contribute 30% of their countable income towards housing costs, and the HRS pays the difference of up to the maximum allowed. People may also be eligible for assistance with their security deposit and other moving costs. People also may choose to live alone with roommates and with living caregivers. And last but not least, people accessing HRS may choose to have or not have staffing support. As far as ComHab or community habilitation goes, it's referred to as ComHab, and it is a direct service that is optional but highly encouraged for people Accessing the Housing Rental Subsidy Program. This service provides a direct support professional or DSP for a flexible number of hours per week based on the need of the person. The DSP provides support in all life skills areas such as learning how to budget, support with food shopping, support accessing medical care, maintaining independent living lifestyle, and more. The DSP can support the person to have discussion and communicate with the landlord and or the management company. Lastly, the DSP can help with setting up utilities and finding budget-friendly options to utilize and more. So
Hi,
what
it's
type
Chris
of-
again. I just wanted to jump in and just say that there is a stark difference between government federal subsidy programs and the housing subsidy here in New York State for people with intellectual disability. And bottom line is there's stronger support. There, like I said earlier, there are direct support professionals that are there supporting people on a daily basis, a weekly basis. There is nursing, medical support, there is social work support, there is care management support, and landlords are directly given a list of contacts within the organization, in case there are issues that need to be discussed. Thanks. I give it back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Chris. Um, so what type of housing is acceptable under the HRS program? So acceptable housing units include a single-family home, townhouse, condominium, apartment, a co-op apartment, or a manufactured home. Acceptable housing must meet OPWDD's criteria for housing assistance and must be available to rent, own, or occupy under a legally enforceable lease/agreement. Housing must be available to the public or through an OPWDD provider agency. Housing units must meet OPWDD's housing quality standards, which are based on the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Housing quality standards under 24 CFR 982-401, used for the Section 8 voucher program. The housing unit must be a specific separate unit with kitchen and bathroom facilities and meet local and state standards as a legal dwelling unit. The OPWDD housing subsidy program does not support renting a room. Benefits for the landlords. So at the beginning of every month, landlords will receive automatic clearing housing house, which is ACH direct deposit towards the tenant's portion of the rent from PCCS. PCCS supports the person enrolled in HRS with strongly encouraging the below support. Enrolling into ComHab, which is a program that provides ComHab community habilitative services in the community, which includes including in the person's apartment to facilitate community inclusion, integration, relationship building, and independent skills. Community habilitation supports can include adaptive skill development, development of social skills, leisure skills, activities of daily living, such as daily household cleaning, grocery shopping, budget, hygiene. Also supports with travel training and appropriate behavior development to help the person access their community. All ComHab services are provided by a prescribed staff action plan, which outlines the specific services to be provided. PCCS provides the required support of assistance with communicating with the landlord as needed, completes at least annual formal apartment checks to ensure that the unit is in good shape. Each person is assigned an HRS coordinator who is the person's main contact for any of their HRS needs. This includes, but is not limited to, at minimum once a month in-person apartment visits. We also are on call 24/7 as an emergency support line. And the person may receive additional supports that assist him or her in maintaining and sustaining his or her tenancy. The landlord responsibility in the HRS program include but are not limited to preparing and executing a lease and or occupancy agreement, maintaining the apartment according to housing quality standards set forth by the state of New York, accepting the portion of the rent from the person supported, and contacting the tenant and or PCCS if they have any difficulties or changes to the rent, maintenance, lease, renewal, etc. Our responsibility as PCCS include but are not limited to assist with locating available apartments, viewing and approving housing units, reviewing leases with the people as prospective tenant, processing and delivering the subsidy portion of the rent, assisting with moving, setting up homes, establishing utility, cable accounts, and helping people maintain their tenancy, and ensuring people meet their housing responsibilities. These are the updated subsidy rates as far as June 2025. As you guys see here, for one bedroom, the maximum subsidy amount would cover about 2511. Two bedroom would cover that amount 2780. Three bedroom, maximum subsidy amount would be 3465. And lastly, four bedroom apartments or homes, the maximum subsidy amount will cover 3730. So this is basically a sample subsidy calculation. If Joe has a monthly income of $883, 200 is taken out to account for personal spending, leaving Joe with accountable income of $683. Joe's rent is $1,300 a month. Joe's gross housing contribution is 205. So that would be the amount that he would be paying out of his countable income. Joe would pay $60 a month in utilities, which is considered an offset for his housing contribution. Joe would be responsible for paying his landlord $145 a month for his portion of the rent. And that number is figured out based on the gross housing contribution, which is 205 minus the $60 of utility that he does pay. And the math checks out to be 145. Then Joe would receive $1,555 from the subsidy, which would be directly paid to the landlord from PCCS via direct deposit.
Jump in here?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Sam. I'm going to jump in for the myth busting facts. Like Chris was saying before, the biggest part of this subsidy is that there is support within our programs. There's support for the tenant, there's support for the landlord. With other housing vouchers, you don't get that support. You're relying on the tenant. You're hoping that they pay their rent on time. You're hoping that you get the direct deposit or, you know, the time that it's supposed to be done. But the housing rental subsidy has that support. So some myth busting facts we have here. So tenants with disability will need constant supervision. Not true. Most individuals in the OPWD housing subsidy program can live independently with minimal or on-call supports. They are not under 24/7 care. So before you get into the housing and rental subsidy, Person-Centered Care Services does a housing assessment to assess to see if you're able to live on your own independently. Can you do so safely? And it's a comprehensive plan that we go over to ensure that the person supported is prepared to actually live on their own. We're not just throwing them into an apartment with no support. The second myth is, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just wanted to jump in. We actually do support people that require 24/7 care. These folks are living in their own apartments. They have been for many, many years. Not only do they get support from PCCS, but they get home health aid service around the clock 24/7. So there's always someone in their apartment should they need that. These are typically for people who are quadriplegic or paraplegic, but they do get the supports that they need to stay in their own home. Like I said, they're long-term tenants. But they need the support to access the community or even just go into, you know, if they're living in a building that has a pool, just so that they have someone there that can support them and access the all of the amenities of the apartment building that they live in.
Yes, thank you so much, Chris, for clarifying. Yes, so there are some people that can have the 24/7 support, but that doesn't mean that everyone we support requires the 24/7 support. So thank you for clarifying that.
They give me an option.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll have to make major changes to my unit. So no, units usually only have to meet standard housing quality and safety codes, the same as for any tenant. We're going to talk about in a couple of slides ahead that there are some options if you do need to make environmental modifications under OPWDD for this housing rental subsidy, and we'll go into exactly what those are in a little bit. The third myth is there's a high risk of property damage. So experience shows tenants with disabilities often treat their homes with extra pride and care. Providers can help with problem solving if issues arise. Usually if you also have someone we support that might have high behavioral needs in that staff action plan that a staff is supporting them with, we're usually working on those behavioral needs as well. The rent payments might be unreliable, so that's not true. The rent is directly paid by the tenant using their income contribution, and the state subsidy is dispersed monthly, and payments are dependable and predictable. So they're getting that direct deposit directly to them. From the agency, they don't have to worry about waiting on the tenant. It's usually the same time every month. I don't know how to handle emergencies or behavioral issues. So every tenant has a support team who can be contacted for guidance. You are not expected to be a case manager, just a landlord. We have the supports in place at PCCS that can support that through those problems. As a landlord, you're just there to be the landlord. My insurance or mortgage won't allow this kind of rental. The program funds standard residential leases. There's no special classification or license required. Tenants are individuals, they're people, they're not agency or facility. What if the tenant loses their subsidy or can't pay the rent? The subsidy is state funded and stable. Eligibility and payments are closely monitored by OPWDD, and rent payments are consistent with built-in safeguards as well. It'll take too long to get paid. Payment processing is consistent with rent contributions coming from both tenant and subsidy funds monthly. Direct deposit is often available, and that's usually the preferred method. I don't know how to communicate with a person with a disability. Basic communication and respect go a long way. Providers can offer guidance or communication tips if needed. We should be treating everyone as people. So using person-first language or just treating someone as you would treat anybody else, starting there goes a long way. If someone has a preferred communication method, or they might use a communication device, or there's some other type of communication, I'm sure the team will work with the landlord to kind of educate them on that communication method so they could better communicate with the tenant. Next. And this is housing and rental subsidy versus the housing choice voucher. So we have a couple of categories here, and I'm going to give you the difference between the two. So first is the funding source. So the housing subsidy under OPWDD is New York State's OPWDD Developmental Disabilities Funding. Housing choice voucher, or Section 8, that's funded under the federal U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD funding. The purpose, so for under OPWDD, it supports independent living and inclusion for people with intellectual or developmental disabilities. Under Housing Choice Voucher, it provides rental assistance for low-income individuals and families. For administration, for the housing subsidy, it's administered by OPWDD and contracted agencies and fiscal intermediaries, and that's self-direction. And the Housing Choice Voucher is administered by public housing authorities, or PHA, under HUD. For eligibility, the housing and rental subsidy under OPWDD, you must be eligible for OPWDD services and approved through a regional office. That's what I was talking about previously, was how to get services through OPWDD and the front door process. For the housing and choice voucher, you must meet federal income guidelines and citizenship requirements. For rent calculation, under OPWDD, the tenant pays 30 to 40% of income and OPWDD pays the remainder. And for the housing choice voucher, the tenant pays 30% of the adjusted income and the HUD covers the rest. For the payment structure, the agency and the FI pays the landlord directly. So like I said before, there's no waiting. You're not waiting for the tenant to then pay and then the agency to pay. The landlords get the direct deposit directly from the agency. For housing choice voucher, the PHA pays the landlord and the tenant pays their share. For support services, OPWDD includes case management and ongoing support. Like I said before, and you're going to hear this a lot, the biggest difference between the two vouchers is that you're getting support with the OPWDD housing and rental subsidy. For the housing choice voucher, there's no built-in services. The tenant just manages independently. The housing type, it could be a private market housing chosen by the person with support. So the person we support has the option and the autonomy to choose wherever they want to live. Under the housing choice voucher, also the private market or HUD approved units. Portability. So for OPWD housing and rental subsidy, it's limited to OPWD approved housing in New York State. And the housing choice voucher is portable nationwide in participating jurisdictions. Landlord incentives. For the housing and rental subsidy, the agency partnership and communication support. So that's seen as a benefit. You have that communication support. If you're having trouble with your tenant, you know that there's a team behind them. And for housing choice voucher, it's guaranteed federal rent payments. And then for compliant oversight, lastly, so under the housing and rental subsidy, state oversight is focused on safety and independence. We want to make sure that people we support are safe within their apartments and that they're being as independent as possible with any supports that they make. And then federal HUD standards focused on property quality. I wanted to talk very briefly about environmental modifications under OPWD. So they're also often called EMOD. So these are changes made to your home to help you live there safely and independently. And these changes can fix safety issues and make it easier to move around or do daily activities. Some examples of an environmental modification can include things like ramps, lifts, handrails, bathroom changes, such as roll-in showers. EMODs can also include supports for people with sensory needs, like braille labels, smoke alarms with flashing lights, or other alert systems. For people with challenging behaviors, EMODs can also include things like window guards, stronger walls, open door alarms, or tough wall finishes to make the home safer. And these home changes can be provided by an environmental modification provider, like person-centered care services, and are covered by Medicaid. These
So
are some
Elise, I
examples.
just wanted to jump in.
Yep.
When we're talking about environmental medications, we want to highlight the lack of not only affordable housing, but accessible housing. We do support several people who are wheelchair users, and we don't, where there are times they cannot, access the bathroom, the shower, or even their kitchen. High cabinets, the sink, the stove are not adjusted at a certain height. So that's why we're holding this, this forum today, and we probably will hold more. And we're hoping that those of you who are property owners, real estate brokers, or represent agencies, to talk about this. As we all age, we are going to become disabled, and we want to, most of us want to stay in our homes, but we need to, have them accessible in order to keep doing the things that we like to do, cook, grab our favorite cereal, but we may not be able to reach those high cabinets anymore. So that's why there's another access here, service here called environmental modifications. And in most cases, there are grants or Medicaid will provide for these changes. So we'd like everybody just to keep an open mind and to also think about not only people who are existing in our society as disabled now, but ourselves who will become disabled.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. And that's a great point. In other trainings that I facilitate, I really push the issue of universal design. Accessibility is not just for people with disabilities, it's for all. So something like an environmental modification can only help a property or maybe raise its value. And we'll talk more about the landlord benefits too, right after this. So some allowable EMODs, these are not all, these are just some examples. So ramps, as I said before, lifts, hydraulic, manual, or electric for a porch, bathroom or stairs. The lifts may also be rented if it's determined that it's more cost effective, so that depends. Widened doorways or hallways, handrails and grab bars, automatic or manual door openers and doorbells. Bathroom and kitchen modifications such as additions or adjustments to allow accessibility or improved functioning. And that can include a roll-in shower, a sink and tub, water faucet controls, plumbing adaptations to allow for cutouts, toilet and sink adaptations, turnaround space, changes in adaptations, work tables, work surface adaptations, cabinet and shelving. So this is just a summary of everything, because I know it's a lot of information of what landlords should know about EMODs. So the purpose is to make changes to a person's home to help them live safely and independently. These changes are often needed by people with disabilities or people with mobility challenges. So some examples, like I said before, it could be ramps, grad bars, handrails, stair lifts or wider doorways, roll-in showers, or safety alarms with lights for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. So who pays for this? I know that's a big question as a landlord. All right, I could do this, but who's going to pay for this? So the cost of EMOD is usually covered by Medicaid through an approved provider, for example, PCCS. The tenant does not pay out of pocket and the landlord is not responsible for the cost. So this is also under OPWD when you apply for an environmental modification. Permission and communication. So is someone with OPWDD just going to say, hey, I need a wheelchair ramp in my apartment, and they're just going to do the work without the permission of the landlord? No. So before any work begins, the provider will contact the landlord for written approval. We have to have that on paper. The landlord can review the plans and discuss details like materials, placement, and timing. So the landlord does have a say on where something goes or how it's built. So the landlord is not completely taken out of the picture. And restoring the property, and in most cases, if a tenant moves out, the home can be restored to its original condition if that's needed or requested. Some modifications, such as grab bars or ramps, may also increase property value and accessibility for future tenants. So you might have that wheelchair accessible entrance and be like, you know what, my next tenant might be able to use it. So some benefits, it improves the property safety and accessibility just overall, not just for people with disabilities. It helps tenants stay longer and maintain stability, and it shows compliance with fair housing and accessibility laws. So there's a lot of benefits there as a landlord. And this would be directly for the person, for the tenant. So the tenant was going to be the one that applies for the environmental modifications.
Can we ask questions now or we wait?
You could absolutely, I'm pretty sure the next slide is questions. There you go. Yes, go ahead.
I didn't write this presentation. So are you saying that you are a EMODS provider?
We are an EMODS provider, yes.
Okay, so if modifications are done to the apartment, if anything can be shifted into another apartment, do you assist with that? Is there a budget for that?
So what usually happens for EMODs is we get a scope of work directly from whoever's doing the work. So we get a scope of work to see what needs to be done. Once we get the scope of work, we send out bids to at least 3 providers.
No, I understand, but if you have like a specialty sink that can be removed into another apartment, is that done or do we start all over? Is this a one-time thing that you support the EMODs? If they move into another apartment, do you help again?
That is a great question. That I don't necessarily know the answer to. Look, go ahead.
I don't think that there's a limit of how much EMOD can support, like, based on like several moves.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure they could continuously help them out. And to your point, when you did mention about, when doing it in the original apartment, it's not only, EMODs won't only be there to make the modification, but they can help take it out when the tenant moves, if they.
Who's that?
If the tenant ends up moving out and no longer needing the EMODs or any of the
This is
modifications.
somebody in a wheelchair, so they need it. They're always gonna be the same.
Yeah, so if they happen to move and it's in their choice to move to another apartment that doesn't have like a ramp or anything, I'm pretty sure us tapping into a resource like EMODs will be able to assist with more than one apartments for one.
Yeah, so the
person.
short answer is yes. They would
Okay.
continuously get the E-modifications as long as they were eligible
Because they need it.
and fall under the requirements, yes, because they need it.
All right, sometimes it's a one-time thing.
One time, yes, yes.
For sure.
And environmental modifications too, there are other ways that you could, depending on what the device is needed, there are other reimbursement paths that you can take under OPWD and Medicaid also to be able to take that. But environmental modifications is just one type of way that someone can.
And you're gonna
obtain
provide
that.
the contact to your agency for the EMOD?
Yes, I will. And that's actually the next slide after question. Is the agency contact, yes. And the person has to be enrolled under OPWDD though, in order to,
Yeah.
okay, great. Any other questions?
So I just want to add something.
Sure.
So the rent can be shared with a parent, right? Just want to mention that if a parent and an individual share an apartment, they can share the rent together and the subsidy pays the individual's portion and the.
If they're both on the lease.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And
then-
also,
But at the end of the day, I think it's the individual's choice if they make their own decisions, I mean. So if, like,
Well,
the,
if a parent and an individual live together and they're renting an
Yeah.
apartment,
Yeah.
it could be shared. I just want to add that.
Yeah.
There's also a pilot program for college dorms.
Mhm.
We pay for that as well, right, in housing.
Yeah.
And, Chris, an alternative to a home health aide, there's also a living caregiver.
You're talking about a different program. We're really just focusing on the housing rental subsidy. So like,
Right.
that would be for another event. I don't want to start confusing people with all
I see.
these options. So we're not differentiating. This is just the housing rental subsidy program. And we are touching base on things like modifications because there's not a huge footprint of accessible housing, especially here on Staten Island. And we're not
Right.
just talking about ramps and elevators. We're
Oh, I know.
talking about showers. We're talking about the entryway to a bathroom, the kitchens. There are other types of grants or opportunities like home enabling supports, and also outside of OPWDD that we could tap into. One of the biggest challenges is finding a property owner who will allow those changes.
Correct.
So when we say that our vision is to reconfigure humankind, this is part of it. We want to change the way people think.
Got it.
Yeah, and this is really what this is for, and we're hoping that with a mix of the recording and having people here in person, and thank you again to the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce for allowing us to be here in person today, and also the people that are here virtually to start these conversations, because there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of pushback, there's a lot of, no, this is my place, I own it, these are, my rules, my rights, and we're trying to kind of open people's minds to the fact that people with disabilities are good tenants and have the support of a program. The housing subsidy waiver, not waiver, the housing rental subsidy is a reliable income source. You don't have to wait for, someone to pay the rent, that you're always going to get that money on time. And to possibly have them reconfigure or rethink how their properties are. Are they accessible? Are their doorways even wide enough for a wheelchair? And that's something that, people don't even think about because, they're putting in a door and they're like, okay, it's a generic size, I guess, for everyone. So this is really the purpose of this, is to kind of get out there and educate as many landlords, property owners, real estate agents as possible so that we could kind of spread the word and open some minds for people with disabilities.
We have real estate agents in this room right now.
We do.
You do.
We have some time at the end too to do some networking, but yes, we have some real estate agents today. I won't call you out yet. I'll leave you alone. Any other questions? Anybody virtually have any questions?
Well, I'll throw one at you.
Yeah.
Time frame. Landlords want to rent their properties.
Right.
So now, if we're getting Medicare and then we're getting contractors, there's a time frame gap when the landlord's going to say, well, all right, this is fine and dandy, but I want to rent this place. I don't want to make a book out of this.
Yeah.
So to sell this, that time frame has to be
Short. Yes.
considerably.
Mhm.
And so what is the direction on that?
Transparently, the time frame is not short. Because, so what happens with EMOD specifically is you get a scope of work. The scope of work has to be approved by the state. Once the scope of work is approved, you send out the bids. So you send it out to 3 different contractors that would possibly do the work. Whoever has the lowest cost or is able to do the work then takes the bid. Then that bid sent back to the state for approval. Okay, this is the person that's doing it. And then the work possibly starts. And then once the work starts, PCCS as a provider, the payment is not the issue, it's the approval from the state. It's getting that initial approval for the scope of work. Sometimes we've had instances where a very small language change of like where they wanted something like in a bathroom, like if they wanted a railing in the shower. Because when you walk into the shower, it had to be on a specific side. So if you accidentally wrote right side instead of left side, now you're denied that whole application. Now you got to resubmit it and wait for the submission. So really the work itself, depending on the length of the job or how big the job is, doesn't take a long time. It's the approval from the state. So that's kind of where.
So can ballpark figure, at best case scenario, it's 90 days.
I want to jump in here. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
Chris,
want to
go
jump in here. I just
Yes,
want to
please.
clarify the question. You're asking that if you rent, you're a property owner, you have an apartment, the person who wants the apartment needs to make some home modifications in order to live there. Is that your question?
No, it's.
No, I'm looking at, I'm a realtor. So now how do I sell this to an apartment owner, a homeowner in that 3 months, unless you're going to give them, you're going to underwrite their rent. to those three-
First of all, the apartment would be paid for first while the modifications are being done. So
That was the question. The real
Yeah, that's
question,
the
because I know where he's
modification
coming from,
Yes.
is from the time you say, yes, we're gonna rent to you, to the time the lease is signed and the payments come in. Forget about the E-mods, because that has nothing to do with it. The lease belongs to you already and you're paying the rent, so who cares? And I don't mean this, but the landlord's not really concerned with your person can't move in because your modifications aren't made because they're getting their rent.
Right.
So it really, the modifications do not play a part in this. The
Absolutely.
real question
I
is,
thought it was how long
No.
do the mods take,
the
but yes.
real question
sure it
is,
yeah.
by the time we say yes to a tenant and the lease is signed and the payments start, that's really what the landlord cares about.
So the tenant has to have the money to start renting the apartment. She's gonna have. the
But how long
deposit
does the
first
approval
month.
process
That's,
take?
that's separate. The tenant has to come in with the money.
So basically for the 3 months it takes, they're getting the money each month.
Yeah.
still.
Still,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, before they even move in with the mods.
even if the
One of the
person is
biggest-
not living.
So
Yes.
from a landlord's perspective, from a realtor's perspective, the biggest issue with Section 8 is we approve the tenant. It takes 3 months from then to get paid.
No.
That's not
That's
the
what the
case.
question is. That's what we want to hear from you.
We're not that.
That's
No,
the-
Yes.
That's
You
the
get-
myth that you need to
You
break.
get the payment, from whatever the contract is of the first month that they're moving in, that's when you get the
Yeah.
payment from them. So
They
there's no
fight back.
probationary period. And
Right.
and it comes directly from the agency, so you're not even worried about, oh, if the tenant has their half, the agency pays you in full direct.
100%.
This is one of the benefits of this program instead of using a Section 8.
There's no wait
This is
period.
not an optional thing. It's a must. It's a need. These people we support need it.
If payments are made as soon as a lease is signed on the first day of the lease, whether the tenant moves in or doesn't move in for any reason, such as a modification reason, that does not affect the payments to the landlord.
The tenant is responsible for the payment because the lease is between the tenant and the landlord.
Right.
The agency is just a supplement.
This is very understandable. There might be more humanitarian landlords elsewhere, but on Staten Island,
No.
Well, no. This is actually, I know where you're coming from. All transparency,
Yeah.
works for me.
Oh.
So, and I know what our issues are.
Yeah.
The issues are that this is why he's here, is to understand the differences.
Yeah.
When we sign with the Section 8 person, we sign the lease, the rent start, yes, we get the back rent, but 3 months later, after the approval process, and that can be canceled at any time. So with this program, they're signing a lease, you're getting the checks.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's not that wait period. So it doesn't have to be humanitarian, you're getting paid. It's actually more business savvy to take this program than to take a regular tenant or a Section 8 person.
if you take it to the next level, at a Section 8 or a FEPS, they're going to get a security the landlord can get if there's damage to the apartment.
Same thing.
You get the same program.
You get security.
They're going to get a security.
There's security deposit, everything.
First month.
Yeah, we had to pay first month at least.
And also like to even add more to this, like we've been in positions where some of our people supported had like a medical decline and they had to be hospitalized or they had to be admitted to a nursing home for a specific period of time. During that time, that did not affect the subsidy payments whatsoever. So whether the person works and can provide the rent payment on its own or not, the one constant thing in this is the subsidy payment goes on time and it doesn't affect anything.
It's treated like a typical person. You sign the lease, first month deposit, And then the individual gets reimbursed after
Correct.
from
We
the.
having future meetings with landlords?
Yes, you are. Yes, you will be. That's why you're here.
Because actually, you've sold us to an extent. Now you're gonna sell landlords.
Well, we're gonna continue. That's the next section.
Yeah,
Hang on.
yeah, so we have
Don't
a,
jump ahead.
we have a panelist discussion after this, but yeah, the purpose of this too was to get landlords, and I know that's a little bit harder because there's not like an association of landlords that will speak. So it does take a little bit of outreach, but I'm hoping that educate everybody here, that you could spread this information to your landlords. And if there's enough traction, we would love to host this again, and we could do it virtual in person, we're very flexible.
Hopefully it comes to a point where we need a bigger room.
Yeah, there you go. See,
There you
that's.
So I have a positive experience. I'm moving somebody out of the apartment right now. And the landlord is asking me if I have another individual because they liked it because the rent comes on first of the month.
Yeah.
Never fail. So they want to know if I have someone else. I do have someone else, but I need accessibility and it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
But yeah, they asked me for another tenant immediately.
Because it's breaking past that initial like thought process
Yeah.
of, oh, this is just
They
a
love it.
voucher, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not, it's completely different.
And they know the
Yeah.
rent, whether they get the 30% difference or not.
Right.
So some landlords get nothing, right? But it's better,
Some,
less,
Better than
30% less than.
Yeah.
yeah, you think
Yeah,
about it, during the COVID years, when everybody was being laid off, guys, like,
Our guys
The
pay
one-
the rent.
the one stable thing during that whole phase was the landlords getting their rent payments on time every month.
Yep.
From a program like this. Not wishing that there is any other phase like that, but if you look at like the worst case scenario, like that literally is for a landlord, the worst case scenario that
When
a
I,
tenant is laid off, can't work, can't pay rent, that kind of diffuses that.
when I was accepted into this agency, it was during COVID. And I couldn't move into my new apartment because my house, there was someone with COVID. So therefore I had to pay the first month's rent and my security deposit, and I couldn't even move into the place yet. But the landlord was still taking care of holding my spot.
So this actually segues perfectly into the panelist discussion since we're already talking. So this is great. Oh, just really quickly, these are the contacts. For people supported that are interested in the housing rental subsidy, you could reach out to Lucia Rossi. She's the intake and benefits specialist. Her information is here. For those of you virtually and in person, we will be sending these slides out, so don't, panic if you can't get the screenshot that you want right now. And then to connect with us for apartments that are available, if you have any apartments available, if you know anybody that has apartments available, please reach out to Sam. He's the director of community supports, and we have his office number and his email there as well. So with that being said, yeah, you could end that. All right, panelists, are we ready? Do we need a break? I think we're ready. All right, cool. Okay, so we're gonna start a little bit early on the panelist style discussion. Like I said, I have a couple questions here for the panelists, but for those virtually and in person, if you have a question at any point, feel free to just throw it in the chat, unmute yourself here, whatever you need to do. Really the purpose of this is to talk, just as we were doing 2 seconds ago. So just to introduce everybody again, we have Chris, who's virtually on with us. We have Christine, Lori, Joe, and Sam. So these are our panelists today, and we're gonna start the discussion right now. Joe, I'm gonna start with you, if that's okay. So what kind of support or programs helped you find housing? For example, like your care coordinator, your family?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so my overseer of the case, my case for PCCS, helped me find a home that's a 1 bedroom and was able to see if it's accommodating for me. Like, I'm a tall person, I can't be in certain apartments that are low ceiling. So they had to look for a higher ceiling apartment. I have to be able to move around and stuff in it. I like to have a driveway because I do drive, but it's not always a factor. Like, if you can't get it, you can't get it. I have a driveway, but I didn't have a car at the time, so the lease did otherwise. So certain things like that. When I finally got approved for an apartment, you have to make sure you're able to cook for yourself, clean, maintain. There's not maids coming in 24/7. You gotta be able to do certain things. My apartment get checks come in like every 3 times a year now. They are, because to keep on top of our and our person supported. We also get the option, if so provided, we need DSPs. I have a DSP myself. We go out in the community. He helps me. I drive for work, so he helps me get around, grocery shop and stuff. Gives me a little like weight off my shoulders. For work, I'm a direct support provider as well. But I transitioned into self-direction work where I'm helping individuals through that way. Um, uh, I worked with many clients. I've been given cases where there's people with cerebral palsy and wheelchairs, and I see what they go through with apartments and stuff. And he wants to move from where he is, but there is no options really. So where he is, I'm telling him, is a rarity, and you should be grateful. But they should have more, honestly. And it would be nice to see that around this small community we have. This island ain't big at all, and this program only works here. So we want to make everyone have a home to come to and to cherish what little space they have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. And that's really important to be able to share your firsthand experience with the program too, because, we could all sit here and talk about the logistics of the program, but having that real life experience is really beneficial. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And I
and
just want to say,
Yeah.
Joe, thanks for sharing your story, but your experience really shows how interdependent and interconnected we are as a society. Not only are you receiving support, but you're also helping other people who need support. And talk about humanitarian, that should be our number one priority as human beings. So thank you again for sharing that story, Joe.
It's always good to give back.
So, Christine, I'm going to go to you. I know we talked about this a little bit, but I want some specifics. So have you ever worked with case managers, care coordinators, or any other agencies that support a person with intellectual disabilities? And if so, what worked and what didn't?
So, yes,
Okay.
I worked with them as a broker and as a landlord, because again, I was raised as a landlord. So the issues that I faced were, they didn't understand what I wanted. I didn't understand what they wanted. And that's where it has to come in. Just as Bob is saying, hey, what's the difference with the E-mods? How much longer is that going to take? Because that's all we're going to hear from landlord.
Right.
When am I getting paid? I don't care about, and humanitarian, this is a business to the landlord. This is not, listen, I give back a lot in my life. We all know I'm on a lot of different things. However, this is my job. So at the end of the day, how am I getting paid? And that's all the landlord cares about. And the difference is, when we can explain to them, wait, you don't have that. We've just had, and the reason why Bob asked is we've had 2 people in the past month that actually were in the process so long that the landlord was like, forget it, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it, not in this program, in a regular Section 8 situation. I'm out. I don't want anything to do with it. Just get me a regular tenant or I'm done. I'll keep it open. That doesn't happen here. And I think that when I get that phone call of, hey, I'm working with a program.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, which one of my landlords are really going to be open for this? Instead of, hey, I got this great individual. They have some setbacks, but we have this great agency that's supporting them. That's the difference. Is that little difference in that communication makes all the difference to the landlord, because they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, I have a great kid. He's coming in. Sorry, I know I'm a little old, but I have a great kid that needs an apartment. He's tall. All I care about is that your ceilings, he can walk around and
Yeah.
I don't have that problem. But he's tall. That's all that matters. He's very self-sufficient. Not only is he self-sufficient, not only is the rent going to be paid and you're going to not have a lag time. The agency is going to back you up and make sure that he's self-sufficient. They're going to come and check his apartment. So you know what? I can rent your apartment. Sure, I have good income, good credit. I can go in there and I can be a slob. I can have be a hoarder. You have no idea.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that option. He doesn't have the option of having a messy apartment, and I don't mean to pick on you, but you're sitting in front of me, so he doesn't have the option of a messy apartment. He doesn't have an option of not taking care of the apartment and because he's being checked on.
Yeah.
What better tenant is there than that? So that's really the difference is I find that the people that are, and no disrespect to anybody in the room, the people that are advocating for you out there don't know what to say. And they're saying the wrong thing. Because that first word, I have a program.
Voucher.
No, I have a great guy. I mean, look at how much he's done and accomplished. That's who I want to present. And then he's got this whole support system behind, which a regular tenant does not have.
Correct.
So
Very true.
that's the
I just
difference.
want to piggyback on what you said, because that's what we're lacking, explaining what our program is about. And no matter how hard I try to tell the landlord, they still want to run a credit check on the individual. So if we can have something from PCCS that says we are guaranteeing this rent based on the fact that he's approved or she's approved for housing, and we're saying everything's in place, right? We need, the credit check is not enough when you mention that an agency is going to assist with the rent, right? So sometimes I tell the landlord, well, pretend that his mom is sending a check every month and you tell people that it's coming. We know it's coming. So you don't need to run the credit check. But if we had something more solid from,
Tangible, yeah.
yeah, that the landlord can understand that this rent is coming. Once we're in, it's great. But to get in there, they don't understand the process. And I don't know how much more to try to explain, what OPWDV is and how much it supports.
Well, the good part about that, and the easy way to say it, is that when they hear program, okay, the program is gonna pay 70% of the rent, blow off the 30%, because I'm never gonna get that, or
Yeah.
if I don't get that, I can't take you to court for it.
No,
That's a normal program. However, with this program, he's not paying the 30%. They're paying the full rent and they're collecting it. So it's on them to make sure that all the documents for Section 8 are signed or whatever it's on them to make sure that he keeps being approved and that they're gonna get the 30%. The landlord has no obligation here. They're guaranteeing it. And that's the difference. And that's what needs to be said to the landlord. Because that makes a difference.
if I miss that 30% once, the agency comes at me, not at the landlord.
Right.
It's between the person supported and the individual. The landlord is just getting their full check
Right.
at the first of the
Yeah.
month. And, thank you for saying that, because I think language is super important, and with my history, I could go on a 45-minute rant about the way we talk about people with disabilities, but just like you said, just not even, there's no need for a diagnosis or any explanation. Hey, I have a person here that is willing to leave the apartment and A, B, and C, like not even talking about, because you're right, when they say program or when you say voucher or when you say something like that, immediately no, because of that experiences, or they're not knowing the differences between the two. And I think it's also a good idea to have something in writing, in plain language, that just confirms that the agency is going to be paying and just confirming everything that we're saying too.
And also, not gonna lie, not everyone that receives it, but a lot of our persons supported do receive a check from the government. And PCS could even be the holder of that check and take the rent right out of that check and send the rest to the client. I do so I never have to worry about my rent.
But you have to agree to that.
Yes, but a lot of us do, or could be convinced to through the program if they feel like it's a smart idea.
Very smart.
All right, perfect. This next question could be either for Sam, Lori, or Chris, depending on who wants to answer it. But how does your program coordinate with either care management agencies or within your programs to ensure the ongoing support for tenants? So how are you supporting your tenants?
So, just speaking as the director that oversees this program, we have a lot of parties that we're in constant communication with. Of course, besides the person supported or receiving services themselves, we're always in touch with their care coordinator, care manager. We're always in contact with landlords regarding what issues are coming up, or if there's any issues, or just making sure everything is going okay. Like, it doesn't need to be a bad thing every time I communicate with the landlord. Sometimes I just check in, see if they need anything, if everything's going well, and kind of just touch base to make them feel like they're supported through this as well. And if anything arises the person has, the person supported or receiving services has such a great support system around them from, most of the time they would have a community rehabilitation staff that would advocate for the needs of that person, also assist them in day-to-day, activities and ensuring that they're living in a clean and well-kept apartment. We have a coordinator assigned to that case who is also visiting the person in their home at least once a month and anytime else is needed. We have the layer of the care coordinator. We have another layer of the landlord, and we're all in constant communication. And we do act as the liaison and that bridges the gap between all other parties for the person receiving services or subsidy.
Perfect.
And outside of PCCS, you have the care manager,
Right.
who's in contact with most people supported at least once a month. And then twice a year, there's a full team meeting, with the person and with the team members from PCCS, if the person's family is involved.
Thank you, Chris.
I also wanted, Evelise, I did put in the chat some about language. I don't know if you guys can see the chat up there, but there's different ways
yeah.
of presenting this program to the community.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll read it out loud for those that are in here. So we're instead of these roll, yeah, that's right. So we're looking for landlords interested in dependable tenants with guaranteed monthly rent and professional support behind them, or we're partnering with reliable long-term tenants whose housing is supported by an agency that ensures consistent rent payments and ongoing oversight. So it's straight, it's to the point, tells you exactly what's needed. There's no voucher is not in there. Those words that are trigger words for our landlords are not in there. So that's great. Thank you so much, Chris, for that. I'm going to shoot the next question back over to Joe. So how has having your own home or apartment impacted your life and your sense of independence?
Well, it's definitely made me more independent. It makes me feel like I have something to call my own, and I'm able to like make my own place look good, to be structured around me. I have my choice of things. It gives me my own sense of freedom and responsibility. Ever since I had this kind of like program, I was able to find better work, do more. I participate in Special Olympics because I have the time. I've been able to lose weight, get more active, because I feel better about myself. I feel like I'm doing good and I'm in a good place.
Thank you so much for sharing, Joe.
Love that.
Hey, Christine, back at you.
Here we go.
So what role do you think real estate agents can play in working alongside disability providers or housing specialists?
I think they should be perfect partners.
Yeah.
It's a perfect partnership of being able to be the vocal person for the individual, for the program. It's me going out there and being able to say, hey, I have this great individual and knowing what it is. And it's me being able to say, stop with the program, stop. This is different. Because I'm out there. We see it every day. There's three of us in this room that deal with landlords every day. And, we know what stigma is. We know what they want, what they don't want. And it's easy. I don't deal with rentals a lot for that reason, because I just don't have the time to deal with the discrimination of the whole program situation. And I know that there's another realtor in here that's the same way. However, this isn't that. This is, hey, guys, you have to comply. You have to comply with the non-discrimination. This is your best way to do it. You get this program in here, you're not discriminating, you're being perfect, you're getting paid upon signing a lease, not waiting. You don't have that person in there that you don't want. You're picking the tenant. It's not a tenant that, okay, so now Joe moves out and we're gonna put in and, that person is not, no, you still get, it's yours. He leaves, do you want her, do you want her, do you want her? You get that option. So that's where we should be partnering with you, is being your mouthpiece to tell the landlords.
Yeah, the name of the agency is not on the lease. It's my name.
Right.
The
Correct.
person supported name. That's the difference.
So that's where I think we fit in.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's really important when you're just talking about how it's different. And you're, like you said, it's your name on the
Yeah.
lease, even though you're supported by a circle of support, a care manager, an agency.
It's my
whoever it is,
responsibility.
It's yours, yeah, 100%. All right, next question for Sam, Lori, Chris, whoever would like it. I know we talked a lot about like the stigma busting, but I want to just bring this up again. So what are some of the biggest challenges people or families face when applying for the subsidy?
Trying to speak to the landlords about what the program actually is.
Mhm.
And I've gotten involved talking to some of the landlords for them to explain that it's a benefit for the person
Right.
and it's guaranteed. And before, when you talked about credit, I had an individual, she had no credit. And I wrote a letter explaining the program, and they cut the employment that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big part of this too is advocacy too.
Advocacy.
Educating us.
explaining.
Yeah, even us as professionals, we know all of the professional terms and,
Right.
the things, but it's how am I best advocating for the people that or the person that I support or the people that I support based on their needs, not based on all the technical, no one's trying to be fancy and, give a bunch of sight words. How am I advocating for that? So I think that's really important.
And I know we have Joe here and he's just one individual, but I see this a lot.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. I'm sure Sam sees it too.
A lot of mental disabilities people have. A lot of it's not visual. It's more like talking and practice. When I have to learn something, I don't learn it right away, but I get the hang of it by relating it to other things or whatnot. But a lot of this is like mild. Some people are able to have full-time jobs. Some people can't. It's all depends on the person. There's thousands of disabilities out there. People have like one, maybe two, three. I have 3 disabilities. Will you know that by talking with me or seeing visually? No.
No.
That's a doctor's job. And my job to maintain.
Yeah, and also just to add on to what Joe and Lori said, credit checks is really a struggle for us, like, especially when we are talking to landlords that are not familiar with this program. And also, one of the main struggles is, besides credit checks, is just grabbing the attention span of the landlord after you say the word program or voucher. Because we realize that the minute those words are uttered, they mentally check out. I've even tried as far as like, going on my personal social media, looking for apartments to help out for people supported. And I'll message landlords or people offer a listing like, hey, is this apartment for rent? And they'll engage with me. But the minute I kind of like explain to them like a little bit of background behind what we do and the program that we offer, they definitely check out. I get left on them. I try to lead by even the OPWDD brochure, but I'm starting to think that that's not really working at these days. It's just there's a stigma around either the population we support, or the stigma around vouchers or program. And I wish that landlords saw this as like a good opportunity for them, because it really is. It works in both ways for the person supported, and there is very like a lot of benefits for the landlord for it.
Yeah, even I went hopping around, but as soon as they start relating into like such as things like Section 8, like they keep on saying that whenever I try to bring it up, they just leave me alone or deny.
You have to lead with the differences.
Right, you gotta start
This
immediately.
is not the same as
Not
Section 8. Let me
Section 8.
explain to you.
Yeah.
You're gonna get paid upon lease signing.
Right.
And then go with the bad parts of Section 8 that
Right.
you are not.
Right.
So that's what you have to leave with. As far as the credit check, while I understand a landlord saying that, however, since the check is coming not from the tenant, actually, the check is coming from you guys, that's where you just, so even if a tenant on Section 8 comes to me for an apartment, the credit check that I can run is only based on their portion. So, and every landlord knows that, but however, now you have a tenant that, in all honesty, is not paying any portion. Whether you're paying them is their problem, not my
They
problem.
come to me.
So you can't run his credit because he's not giving you any money.
Right, yeah.
And they're running the money. Do you really need a credit check on a state-run?
Right.
So, no, so that's what you tell the landlord, you say, you can't run a credit check, you actually can't, the check is coming from, not from any portion, pretty sure that from you guys, that's where you get.
One's later not paying a penny for the next
So-
2 years.
The
That
law is
doesn't
very
have to-
clear on what rent
Yeah.
checks could be, what credit check could be. And while I could see them saying, where's the 30%, but since he's not paying the 30% and you are, that's who, and you say you don't need a credit check on that.
Right, they're
And the
not seeing
landlord-
30% anyway, they're seeing the full 100%.
And if you just turn around and say that to
Anyway, but it doesn't matter because
But a lot of the individuals don't have credit cards. They don't have,
Right.
and you don't have credit if you don't have credit cards.
Yeah.
So, like they say, you want to build up your credit, get a Macy's card. Honestly, like that was the first thing I was told, get a Macy's card.
Yeah.
So honestly, there's no credit check needed, and that's what my answer would be. You really don't need one because he's not paying any more rent. You are.
Right, yeah, you have a question? Go ahead.
All right, so I'm the nuts and bolts guy.
Okay.
And so here's a nuts and bolts question. Is there a limit on the length of the lease that you'd be able to sign?
No.
So for instance, are you locked in after a 1-year lease, Joe?
I have a choice between a year or two.
Because you would think that what might sell a landlord is if they're going to do modifications on a property to move this tenant into something longer, maybe 3 to 5. And with cost of living adjustments. Well, now, are they in place, cost of living adjustments for the second year of Joe's?
So there is,
We rent
so
guidelines.
we have a few people that have leases well into like 2027. So as far as like long-term leases, that's definitely an option.
It's usually the landlord's option.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a minimum of a 1-year lease for the
Correct, yeah.
subsidy, but it actually requires you to have a minimum of a 1 year.
My landlord only does 1 or 2 year leases. That's the only reason that I.
Okay,
And as far as like adjustments and cost of living as such adjustments, whenever we do recertify, because unfortunately, we do recertify them every year for a program like that. But that comes with updated rates based on cost of living adjustment. And that's always factored in. So there will be instances where they even get retro paid from times that they were recertified and their subsidy increased, for example, which will make up for that cost of living and offset that.
this is another facet of how you sell a landlord.
It's awesome. I'll definitely keep.
Thank you, guys. Oh, this is a great discussion.
Further conversation, don't worry.
Before we keep going, I just wanna mention for the people in the room, for everyone who's virtual, you're gonna get all of these materials as well, so don't panic, but for those, that's an empty folder. For those that are in the room, who have a folder in front of you, so on the right-hand side is gonna be the packet with all the speakers' bios, but also on the second to last page, you're gonna get the myth-busting facts that we went over in the slideshow, as well as the difference between housing and rental subsidy versus the housing choice voucher. So this is, right? If you would like to, if you're having conversations with the landlord, you could show them directly. Joe, you want to say something?
Does anyone have questions on?
Oh, probably, yes. And then on the other side is gonna be the community supports that talks about the housing rental subsidy, but we also talk about community rehabilitation and what that is and what a compact worker is. And then we have the OPWD flyer for landlords. Because of this conversation, this might not be, and talking about like plain language. This isn't the best plain language document, but this is a good start. So this is something like us internally can talk about, like making things that are more plain language for landlords and,
Right.
Focusing on the things that we've all been talking about.
I did share in the chat, we have something internally that we just built.
Oh, perfect.
And it is a guide for, specifically for landlords, exactly kind of what we talked about here today in plain language. But I do think through some of the conversation here, I see some ways we can tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then maybe we could send it out to this group so you guys have it on.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a good foundation. Yeah, so as Corinne was saying, there's stuff in the chat for you virtual folks. Gotta go up.
Hey, Ev, so it's not in the
Yeah.
chat box. It was in a different chat, and Corinne, it doesn't allow us access to it.
Oh,
So we'll figure that
We'll
out,
update
and
it.
we'll definitely
Yeah.
make sure someone gets it one way or another.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you, Corinne. And then as a side note, we also have our holiday drive flyer. It's coming up. It is Christmas and we are a Diamond Match grant recipient. So any donation you give will be doubled for the children of PS 373 and other schools on Staten Island. We do this holiday drive every year. So feel free to donate if you'd like to. Okay, next. Yeah, that was a commercial break. Are there any questions in the chat before I keep going? No. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody wants to unmute at any point, feel free to do so. Okay, next question. Joe, I know you were talking a little bit. So I know you gave a little overview of your experience, but I wanted to know if there were any challenges that you've run into while either getting the subsidy or being in your apartment, really anything.
Just really, it takes me a long time because when my lease ends, if I do want to move, the window is very small. And to find an available apartment within that move time is like nearly impossible. So I've been wanting to move out of my place, but I have to be a month away from my lease ending. And I have to find something within that month to move in the very next month. Because that's the only way I'll be able to do so. So within that short month span, I have to end this lease, I have to get all my stuff moved by that date, and I have to somehow finding that apartment within the month is
It's a real struggle.
it's like, yeah, and that's the only way I could get the subsidy approved is a month before that lease ends for a new place. Because that new place has to get approved while I'm searching. So.
Just touch on that too, as he said, with getting the new place approved. What is that process? How long does that process take? And even the lease is when the lease is prepared by the landlord. Obviously, the tenant is going to sign the lease, will have a sign. Does it need to be reviewed or go to another oversight to be, approved before it's even signed? Just a timeline per se.
That's actually a really great question. As far as like having a new unit or a new apartment approved, usually I think what Joe means by approval is the landlord approves to receive our subsidy. So there is no lag time, like if we locate a landlord.
Well, let me ask this first. So let's say I have an apartment that I'd like to have this program.
Sure.
And I call you and say, let's have a client come look at it and they like the apartment. Now, is there another walkthrough or someone has to say this fits for our program or?
Agency comes in and.
So we do a walkthrough. We make sure that the unit passes the trade checklist and the guidelines.
If you need.
Once it's there, once both parties agree and a lease is signed and provided, you literally get paid on, there's no lag time between that.
But you say the lease, so now I prepare a lease and I send it to him to sign.
Okay?
He signs it or is it reviewed by the organization that's helping him with the apartment?
He's a tenant and you're the landlord. That's really all the.
It's just the normal cost of course.
Very normal.
It's basically we're normal tenants and we should be treated as such.
Again, just
And
because of the timeline of actually renting the apartment as he was touching on.
Yeah.
Of course.
Understanding that with the renovations, you may have to get
It's
approval from the state and I understand that that's not taking place, but
Yeah.
sometimes with some programs, you might have a third party that still needs to review everything and
But also-
they may hold up, but it's not the case this way.
Also, once you get that initial client into your place, let's say they move out, your place already been approved as a place, so therefore they have people on a wait list who will be right in, fill in that spot.
Yeah, I think Joseph also like the main struggle in his scenario is just finding a landlord that we already don't work with to have a new apartment that is willing to accept our subsidy. And kind of look beyond the stigma of just vouchers and programs. But that's really where the point is of like approval, but just
Yeah.
to find someone that's willing to rent out their apartment in a new apartment.
Like, I don't want to be in like like, you know, those apartment buildings, I want to have a side place, like on a side of house. Those type of apartments were very short on,
I mean,
like, and like the place I was lucky, this landlord that I have has been with the agency.
Right.
And the only reason I even got the apartment is because the other client wanted to move out of there. Otherwise, it would have been a thing.
so Chris, what I just asked offline, because I think I know what your question was. When you send a lease out, they're gonna sit with PCCS and sign it with them.
All
So
they
it's
do
not
is
that
make
they're
sure
going
that
to send it
they
to their
want-
attorneys, but they are going to sit with them and review it with them.
Yeah, that's the service.
And it's also if the client's is not able to understand set lease, they're there to help them.
Reviewing.
Yeah, exactly. But the good news with it being PCCS and not being WP and it's not being the state and this, that, you think,
That's what I'm.
is it's in
Yeah.
their best interest
Their hands.
to hurry up and let's go.
Yeah.
Because all they gotta do is piss you off and then, all right, Gateway's out.
Right, right.
And piss me off and then my people are out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so that's the good part is that you guys are gonna be more proactive than
Correct.
a normal agency.
And
Let's see.
also there is qualifications that PCS goes through a screening process before people get selected for the set agents. Like I had to be screened for a year to make sure I am able to do certain things. They come into the place, see if I can fold stuff and make a meal, able to clean. They monitor all that and they surprise you with that too. I was living in a supportive setting at the time and they had to make sure I was able to do said things. If I got cut, if I get able to treat it properly, if I break my arm, I'm able to get to the ER. Certain things like, am I able to call 911 and work with them and have my insurance card ready for them and able to speak for myself, able to take my own medication, stuff like that. But sometimes even people in our agency that need meds, they have their own nurse that comes to the place to make sure they get the meds, do their blood pressure. I don't have those level of needs, but we have those options.
Thank
Well, I hate to say this, but some of the first things you said, I would fail. My sister, and she will tell you, folding laundry is not my thing.
I do see we had a hand up on the screen. I think it was Teresa. If you're able to. Not sure. Hold on, we might have to allow you.
Hey, Mom, what's up?
Oh. Teresa, we gave you access to unmute if you'd like to.
My mom's not that good with that.
All right, maybe
Sure.
I'll give her a, but you're. Okay, no. All right, if you change your mind, feel free to throw it in the chat or unmute. First, I
I
think.
just wanted to reassure folks that all of the, Joe was talking about assessments. That happens way before he even starts looking for an apartment. So it is a long process for someone going through this, but not for you as the landlord, as the property owner, as the realtor. That process gets done as soon as, if the person likes the apartment, you accept them as a tenant, we get that lease signed. The security deposit, the first month's rent is being paid immediately. And we have moved many people over the years from one apartment to another apartment, from one borough to another borough. Yeah, it is challenging to find an apartment. I think that what we got out of this meeting is we definitely have to change the language, maybe print up a nice brochure and share it with you guys as realtors, as partners in the community. But there is a lot of work, but before we get to that point of the person selecting, apartment, after that, things run smoothly. And not many people are requesting, at least from us, it's a handful of people that have requested home modifications out of the 120 plus people that we support. I am concerned about people who are aging, and we do have a lot of people who are aging and still live at home with their parents who are aging, like 50-year-olds living with 70-year-olds or 60-year-olds living with 80-year-old parents. And my concern is, what do we do, or what supports do we have out there? And we do need your assistance. You may not be working with people with disabilities, But we do need your assistance as the experts in housing. And how do we take care of our fellow, Staten Islanders and New Yorkers?
I think my mom figured out about mute.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris, for that. Teresa, I'll give you one more shot.
Oops.
There we go. Oh,
Hello?
yeah,
Yes.
we hear you.
She unmuted again.
Yeah, you muted again. Well, we're gonna try to.
Mom, try to unmute again.
Do the participants have the ability to unmute?
I just granted her mic access. I think she might have just accidentally muted herself.
Yeah. All right, before we get into any of the real questions that I have on here, does anybody in this room or in the chat have any other questions? I have more, but just in case.
I just want to add something about the aging parents.
Sure.
Hello?
It
Yeah.
gets, go ahead, Teresa.
Oh, finally.
There you
See,
go.
the problem is I don't have Joseph next to.
You heard DSP.
I
Listen,
helped her out.
I don't know if
Technology.
there's landlords in the room or exactly who I'm speaking to, but I gave this agency a child and I got back a man. He's
Thank you,
grown.
Teresa.
He's grown so much that he amazes me. He's my trophy child amongst all my other kids. The landlords take on people that they don't even know and put them in their properties and trust them to do the right thing. Joseph comes with an army behind him. And that's nobody in this world is going to get that, unless they're attached to an agency like PCCS, who's been nothing but wonderful for my son Joseph. And there's just got to be a lot more people out in the community that will welcome these kinds of individuals, because there's a great need for it. And I can tell you this, like I said, he came into the agency with crawling, and now he's running marathons. He's doing just fantastic, and I'm very proud of him.
All proud of you. Great job.
Thank you, Teresa, for that. I really appreciate that. I appreciate Joe. Joe is part of the PCCS team, and he's part of this army, going out there and making change happen.
I've never had to worry about him, honestly. I have other kids in my family that I worry constantly, but with Joseph, I know he's taken care of. There's people behind him. And he entered this program very young. He was in his 20s, early 20s. So he's been with the agency, he's had some history. He's had, when he grew into this position where he is now. And I'm very, very happy.
My client's mom just.
Joe's getting a lot of support and we love that. Thank you so much, Teresa, for sharing that and really pulling this together full circle. But I'll read the chat out loud for those that can't see. Joe is our son's CSP and he does a great job. You are rightfully very proud, Teresa. He's doing fantastic. So we're very appreciative of Joe. And Joe, thank you again for sharing today. Any other questions in the room? Before I shoot it to Sam, because I do want to know a little bit more about those apartment checks. Could you tell me what those entail?
Sure. So we do have two types of apartment checks. One is a quality assurance check, which is OPWDD standardized checklist form that we have to complete at least annually. But we also do 3 apartment checks from our team to just ensure that we're doing due diligence to ensure that the apartments are being kept in great conditions. So everyone's getting at least 3 to 4 apartment checks per month, plus if anything was to arise in between. So at least once a quarter, we're kind of touching base. We're seeing what the apartment looks like and assessing it as a whole very thoroughly. But there's also, we don't only see our people supported once a quarter. We also report if there is a need or if something happens that we need to show up and kind of check things out for. So at the very least, they're getting 4 apartment checks a year. And, you know, 2 different types of apartment checks. One regulated by OPWDD, and it's really required for their recertification. And the other 3 is just our due diligence to ensure that all apartments are being kept to the, and maintained to the best.
Yeah.
Condition.
And in addition to that, you know, those people who have direct support professionals, whether that's daily or a couple of times a week, you know,
Yeah.
or once a week, you know, that's additional, you know, support
100%.
for what
Yeah.
you're doing.
100%.
I think one of the things that you should add to this is that as a landlord, if I have a tenant and I see that they're doing something wrong, I have very difficult to get that rectified. However, if I'm Joe's landlord and I see Joe is doing something wrong, even if it comes to putting the garbage out on the wrong day, which for a landlord is a big deal, you know, violations of step, all they gotta do is call and be
Right.
like, hey, can you get on it? I don't even have to have the conversation with them. We don't have to have, hey, you know what, Sam, Joe's putting the garbage out and it's the wrong day. He's putting his recycles with the regular, whatever it is. That you don't even have to worry about sending the notices, getting lawyers involved. You could,
Yeah, for sure.
and that's a huge asset to a landlord to have that intermediary and not have to worry about it.
100%. Although we really try to push for a normal tenant and landlord relationship, just because that's always needed.
Absolutely.
If there's a need for us to step in and kind of like, you know, address like a certain problem that's been going on, we'll be more than happy to do so. But most of our people supported have like great relationships with their
Right.
landlord. And our landlords that we have a mix of landlords that we've currently working with now and have been working with for years. And they already know our population and they have no problem with just communicating that to them.
I'm just saying,
There is some barrier.
landlords, that's something that you want to really.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'll definitely take note
That,
of
you
that.
know, listen, of course, we say, hey, Joe, you put your plastic bottle in the regular garbage, please. And the next time, Joe, we discuss this. The 3rd time, okay, Sam,
Happens.
can you talk to Joe?
Yeah, for sure.
And
Got it.
that's a big difference.
100%.
A very big difference that makes you better than a cash paying tenant.
And we don't want to lose our agency because if we lose PCCS, we lose our subsidy. So we have to always like make them on our good side and have them. with us.
Exactly. And that's why this program beats out most of the tenants. And that's what you need to reiterate.
Right.
I told you I was all about that.
No,
This is really valuable information. Thank you.
does anybody have any lasting final thoughts, any of the panelists that they want to say that maybe it wasn't asked or wasn't mentioned or something we really want to drive home? Anybody? We said everything we need to say?
Yeah, I think this was great. I
Would
want to
today.
thank, you know, our Realtor partners, Christine, Chris, and, was it Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you to, my associates at PCCS. Thank you to, everyone who joined virtually. I see some of you are parents. Joe's mom, thank you for your feedback. That really means a lot. And I think there's more to come. I would love to have more discussions on this, you know, share more experiences. You know, this is also an economic generator for our Staten Island community, and job generator. So it's a win-win, you know, all around. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. More to come.
And let's spread the word.
Yes, thank you all again for coming. Hopefully we have more events like these in the future. But I really, really appreciate. Thank you to the CR team that helped me put this together. Thank you to all of our panelists that came here for a great discussion. Thank you for everyone online. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their Wednesday.
Thank you.
And everything will be sent out.
I'm
being here for a great discussion. Thank you for everyone online, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their Wednesday.
Thank you.
And everything will be sent out